Hello everyone, my name is Melanie Schwapp and I am the author of Granny Dead, the short story from Jamaica that was featured in the So Many Islands anthology. I'm also the author of a children's book, Lale Mae's Farm Sus, and two novels, Dew Angels, which was released in 2011, and Lest We Find Gold, my latest novel that was just released last year, November. I'm also a small garden landscaper, and believe it or not, that is when my creative juices for writing flow the most. There's just something about being in that hot Jamaican sun with my hands in dirt that makes my stories grow. I think it has a lot to do with growing up on my grandparents' farm, where productivity and culture and love went hand in hand. So, because my writing voice tends to be quite raw, I have to write from a place of extreme confidence and security. And for me, landscaping takes me back to that moment where it gives my voice the power it needs. So after a long day of work, many times is when I come home and I write the most, because that is when I have had a chance to develop my stories and develop my character in that time of working in the soil. So, dear readers of So Many Islands, welcome on a passionate journey through political, social, and gender divides. And I use that word divides quite loosely. For as much as these stories are different, is as much as they're searingly similar. When I received my copy of the book So Many Islands, I was excited to finally read from the other contributors. And what struck me was the familiar thread running through so many of the stories. It was somehow comforting to know that a lot of the things that we struggled with in Jamaica were reflected in other nations as well. But it was joltingly awakening to realize that different landscapes, different nuances of culture, yet many of the struggles and the matter-of-fact pain behind the voices was so familiar. In Granny Dead, I touched on the hint of color and class divides in Jamaica, something that very much lingers over our heads today as a result of colonialism. And to read of this very same theme in The Plundering was a raw realization. Not so much that it still exists, but the fact that it still smarts, it still hurts, and it still ridicules national growth. What the collection of stories in So Many Islands revealed to me was that as much as the smoke of colonialism had cleared, is as much as we are still reeling in the residues left in our society. And yet, there's the beauty, the common resilience of the voices. As I said, much of my peace comes from the growth and productivity of the land. So that tie to the earth is a very much a strong theme in a lot of my writing. It's a thread I also recognized in the So Many Islands anthology. The emotional and economic ties to the land. The emotional stability that comes from, and I think it comes from the fact that the land is finally ours. I think that connection to land is a very important theme, and it's something that appeals to me emotionally. So if Granny Dead were an island, I think she would be very much tied to her sister nations in So Many Islands, in the raw poetry of her expression, and in the vulnerability of the voices and the braveness of the voices in expressing that vulnerability. I believe that the orchestra of voices in So Many Islands forms a tune almost like a love story, where you're celebrating the love, reveling in the moments of joy, but also knowing that the challenges are there and that to grow for the hope of promise and the hope of change, there has to be work done. And I think that the So Many Islands anthology shows that just how far we have come so far in so many changes, but yet there is still a lot more to come.